The champagne cork exploded like a gunshot across the penthouse boardroom. Marcus Vance, CEO of Valtech Industries, didn't even flinch as the foam cascaded onto the mahogany table worth more than most people's homes. Another billion-dollar quarter, ladies and gentlemen, he announced, his voice dripping with satisfaction as his executives applauded. What none of them knew was that in exactly 48 hours, this empire would begin its catastrophic collapse, all because of a warning from a man Marcus considered beneath his notice. Before we dive into the story, let us know what country you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories every day. Marcus surveyed his kingdom from the 65th floor of Valtech Tower. At 42, he built one of the fastest-growing tech companies in Silicon Valley through sheer ruthlessness. Competitors called him the Shark. Employees had darker names they whispered in hallways. "Sir, the Henderson acquisition is complete," his assistant announced nervously. "That's 300 jobs eliminated." Marcus barely looked up from his phone. "Send the severance packages. Standard 2 weeks." "But sir, some of these people have been with Henderson for 20 years. Jennifer, do I pay you to have a conscience?" His ice blue eyes finally met hers. "The weak don't survive in this business." Darwin was right. She nodded and left quickly. Marcus returned to reviewing the launch plans for Secure Home AI, Valtech's revolutionary home security system. 50 million in pre-orders. The biggest product launch in company history. His phone buzzed. Another ex-employee's lawsuit. The 7th this month. Marcus deleted the notification. His legal team would handle it like they handled everything, with overwhelming force and non-disclosure agreements. Mr. Vance, his CFO, Richard, entered with quarterly reports. "The numbers are spectacular, but I'm concerned about the accelerated secure home timeline. Engineering says we're cutting corners." "Engineering always says that," Marcus interrupted. "That's why they work for me and not the other way around. We launch on schedule. Period." Richard hesitated. "There's also the matter of employee morale. We've had 3 suicides this year related to workplace stress. Tragic. Send flowers. Now, is there anything else that actually matters to our bottom line?" Richard left, shaking his head. Marcus poured himself a scotch. 30-year Macallan, $5,000 a bottle. He'd earned this. While others made excuses, he made billions. His empire stretched across 6 continents. 20,000 employees. But Marcus knew the truth. Most of them were replaceable. Interchangeable parts in his machine. The skyline glittered before him like jewels he'd conquered. Somewhere below, in those buildings, were the people he'd crushed on his way up. Former partners. Betrayed friends. Employees discarded when they'd outlived their usefulness. Marcus felt no remorse. This was business. This was survival. As he finished his scotch, he noticed the cleaning cart outside his office. The night shift was arriving. Marcus checked his watch. 8 p.m. Time to review the final secure home contracts before tomorrow's board meeting. He had no idea that in the next hour, he would have an encounter that would change everything. An encounter with a man he'd barely noticed in 15 years. A man whose warning he would mock, and whose prediction would destroy everything Marcus had built. Marcus's office at midnight was a cathedral of capitalism. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the sleeping city, walls adorned with awards for visionary leadership, and framed magazine covers declaring him tech's most ruthless genius. The contract for Secure Home AI lay spread across his desk like a treasure map. 50 million units pre-ordered. Each one would generate subscription revenue for years. This wasn't just a product launch. It was a money-printing machine. The soft squeak of wheels made Marcus look up, annoyed. A cleaning cart appeared in his doorway, pushed by an older black man in a navy blue uniform. James Mitchell. Marcus had seen him around for years, maybe a decade. He'd never bothered to learn the man's name until it appeared on his security clearance badge. "Don't mind me, sir," James said quietly, beginning to empty the trash bins. "I'll be quick." Marcus grunted and returned to his documents. The cleaning man was part of the scenery, like the furniture or the abstract art pieces his decorator had chosen. James worked methodically, moving around the office with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd perfected their craft over countless nights. As he cleaned the conference table, his eyes inadvertently fell on the technical specifications Marcus had left spread out. Marcus noticed James had stopped moving. The janitor was staring at one of the documents, his brow furrowed. "Problem?" Marcus asked, his tone making clear that there better not be. James hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Sir, I couldn't help but notice that's a security system schematic, right?" And Marcus's voice carried an edge of warning. "Well, sir," James pointed at the document with his cleaning cloth, not touching it. "This encryption protocol here, it's using a deprecated authentication method. If I'm reading this right, there's no secondary verification layer for the remote access feature." Marcus stared at him, incredulous. "I'm sorry, you're telling me about encryption protocols? I don't mean to overstep, sir. It's just, I used to work in tech a long time ago, and that architecture looks like it could be vulnerable to what we used to call a session hijacking attack." For a moment, Marcus was too stunned to respond. Then he noticed the technical language, the specific terminology. This wasn't a janitor fumbling through concepts. This was someone who actually understood what he was reading. But the audacity of it, a cleaning man presuming to comment on Valtech's flagship product, was too much. "You used to work in tech," Marcus repeated, his voice dripping with mockery. "Let me guess, you installed printers? Fixed computers in some community college?" James's jaw tightened. "Sir, I'm just trying to help. If that architecture goes to market with that vulnerability..." "Stop!" Marcus stood, his 6-foot frame towering over the older man. "Let me explain something to you, James. I have a team of 50 engineers with PhDs from MIT and Stanford working on this project. They've spent 2 years and $40 million developing this system. And you think you spotted a problem they all missed?" "I'm just saying what I see, sir." "What you see?" Marcus laughed, harsh and cutting. "You see wrong. You know why? Because you're a janitor. You push a mop. You empty trash. That's your expertise. My engineers? They build the future." James stepped back, his dignity intact, but his expression pained. "Mr. Vance, I understand you don't know me. But I'm telling you, as someone who's seen this exact architecture fail before, get out. Sir, get out." Marcus's voice thundered through the office. "And here's a life lesson for free. Stay in your lane. You want to get tech advice? Go get a real degree instead of a janitor certificate and work your way up like everybody else. Until then, stick to what you're qualified for, mopping my floors." James stood there for a long moment, looking at Marcus with something that wasn't anger but profound sadness. Then he quietly gathered his cleaning supplies and left. Marcus slammed his hand on the desk, furious. The nerve of that man, thinking he could just waltz in and question work done by the best engineers money could buy. He grabbed his phone and fired off an email to building management. The night janitor overstepped severely tonight. Ensure he understands his role or replace him. Marcus sat back down, trying to refocus on the contracts. But James's words echoed in his mind. Session hijacking attack. No secondary verification layer. He shook his head. Ridiculous. The system had passed every internal review. His team knew what they were doing. Still, something nagged at him. The way James had spoken, with quiet certainty, not arrogance. The technical precision of his observation. Marcus pulled up the schematic James had pointed to and studied it for the first time in weeks. Then he saw it, the exact vulnerability James had mentioned, sitting there in plain sight. And in 48 hours, that flaw would be exploited by hackers across the globe, turning Marcus's triumph into his greatest nightmare. Morning sunlight flooded Valtech's executive boardroom as Marcus presented Secure Home AI to the board of directors. His confidence was absolute, his presentation flawless. James's warning from the night before had become nothing more than an irritating memory. "Gentlemen, ladies," Marcus concluded, "we're looking at the most successful product launch in Valtech history. 50 million pre-orders. Projected first-year revenue, $3 billion. The board erupted in applause. Sharon Kim, the board chairwoman, beamed. "Marcus, this is extraordinary work. Where do we go live?" 48 hours. Thursday at noon, Pacific time. One voice cut through the celebration. Dr. Raymond Chun, the board's technology advisor, raised his hand. "Marcus, I'd like to review the final security audit reports. Marcus felt a flicker of irritation. We've done 7 independent audits, Raymond. All approved. Humor me. After the Prometheus debacle last year, we can't afford another security breach. Prometheus, the failed product that had cost their competitor $2 billion in recalls and lawsuits. Marcus had studied that case extensively, a cautionary tale of what happened when companies rush to market. Our security is ironclad, Marcus assured him. But I'll have the reports sent to your office within the hour. After the meeting, Marcus's head of engineering, David Park, cornered him in the hallway. David looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his usual neat appearance disheveled. Marcus, we need to talk. Make it quick. I have a press conference at 2. David glanced around nervously. It's about the remote access authentication. Some of the team have concerns about the single-layer verification. Marcus felt his blood pressure spike. First the janitor, now his own engineer. David, we've been over this. The authentication system meets industry standards. Barely. And those standards were written 3 years ago. Hacking techniques have evolved. David, Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. Do you know how much money is riding on this launch? Do you understand what delays would cost us? Competitors are 6 months behind us on this technology. 6 months. We launch on schedule, or we lose our market advantage. But if there's a breach, there won't be. We've invested $40 million in development. We have the best security team in the industry. We've done this right. David looked like he wanted to argue more, but finally nodded. Okay, but I want it on record that engineering recommended additional security layers. Noted. Now get back to work. I want perfection on launch day. As David walked away, Marcus felt a moment of doubt, but he crushed it immediately. This was just pre-launch jitters. Everyone second-guessed themselves before a major release. His phone buzzed. A text from building management. Night janitor issue resolved. He's been reminded of professional boundaries. Good. Marcus deleted the message. That afternoon, during his press conference, Marcus stood before 50 journalists and cameras from major networks. He held up the sleek secure home device, a small black cube that promised to revolutionize home security. In 48 hours, he announced, 50 million homes will become smarter, safer, and more connected than ever before. Secure Home AI isn't just a product, it's peace of mind. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Vance, there's been some criticism about Valtech's workplace culture. How do you respond to allegations that you prioritize profits over people? Marcus smiled his practice smile. I prioritize excellence. That benefits everyone. Our customers, our shareholders, and yes, our employees. The best and brightest want to work here because we don't settle for mediocrity. Another reporter. There are reports of accelerated timelines for this launch. Any concerns about rushing to market? Zero concerns. This product has undergone more testing than any other in Valtech history. We don't compromise on quality or security. Ever. The lies came so easily now. Marcus almost believed them himself. That evening, as he left the office, Marcus passed the cleaning crew beginning their night shift. He saw James in the hallway, quietly pushing his cart. Their eyes met for a brief second. James opened his mouth as if to speak, then thought better of it and looked away. Marcus felt a strange twinge. Was it guilt? Regret? He shook it off and headed to his penthouse apartment. Tomorrow was the final countdown. Thursday would be his greatest triumph. As Marcus poured himself a celebratory scotch, he had no idea that in another part of the city, a group of hackers had already obtained leaked secure home schematics. They'd found the exact vulnerability James had warned about, and they were preparing to exploit it the moment the system went live in an attack that would compromise 50 million homes simultaneously and destroy Marcus's empire in less than 72 hours. Thursday morning arrived with the electricity of a historic moment. Valtech Tower buzzed with energy as employees gathered in the lobby to watch the launch on massive screens. Marcus stood at the podium in the main auditorium, surrounded by cameras and journalists. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice carrying the weight of destiny. Welcome to the future of home security. In 10 seconds, Secure Home AI goes live across the world. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Marcus's heart pounded with anticipation. This was it. His legacy. 3, 2, 1. Secure Home is now live. Applause erupted. Champagne corks popped. Marcus grinned as the activation numbers scrolled across screens. 10 million homes connected. 20 million. 30 million. 50 million homes now protected by Secure Home AI. For exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes, it was perfect. Then Marcus's phone began buzzing. Once. Twice. Then continuously. Jennifer rushed to his side, her face pale. Sir, we're getting reports. Lots of reports. Customer service is being flooded with calls. What kind of reports? Security breaches. People saying their cameras are being accessed remotely. Their door locks are being controlled by someone else. Marcus felt ice water flood his veins. That's impossible. Transfer me to engineering. Now, David Park appeared on video call, his face a mask of panic. Marcus, we have a massive problem. Someone's exploiting a vulnerability in the remote access authentication. They're hijacking user sessions and taking control of the systems. The exact words James had used. Session hijacking. How many systems compromised? Marcus demanded. We don't know yet. Could be thousands. Could be. David's face went even paler. Oh God. Marcus, it's not just one hacker. We're seeing coordinated attacks from multiple sources. They're live streaming it. People are watching hackers unlock doors, access security cameras in real time. It's going viral. Marcus pulled up Twitter on his phone. Hashtag Secure Home Hack was trending worldwide. Videos showed hackers demonstrating how easily they could access homes, control locks, watch through cameras. One video had already been viewed 20 million times. The TV in his office switched to breaking news. Massive security breach at Vaultec Industries. 50 million homes potentially compromised. His phone rang. Sharon Kim from the board. Her voice was ice. Marcus, emergency board meeting. Now, and you better have answers. The next 6 hours were a nightmare. The board meeting was brutal. Investors were pulling out. Stock prices went into free fall, down 40% in a single day. Customer service was receiving death threats. 3 states had already announced investigations. Marcus stood at his office window at midnight, watching protests forming outside Vaultec Tower. People held signs, Vaultec violated our privacy, and sue Vance into bankruptcy. Jennifer entered quietly. Sir, the FBI is here. They want to discuss potential criminal negligence. Tell them I'll cooperate fully. Also, there are reports of actual crimes being committed because of the breach. Burglaries, home invasions. People exploited the hacked systems to identify empty homes. Marcus closed his eyes. People were being hurt because of his product, because of his arrogance. Sir, I have to ask. Jennifer's voice was gentle. Is it true? Is what true? That someone warned you, before the launch, about this exact vulnerability. Marcus turned to face her. Who told you that? It's spreading through the company. People saying a night janitor tried to tell you there was a problem with the security architecture. And you fired him. I didn't fire him. Marcus stopped. What had he done? He dismissed a man trying to help because of his job title. Because of his pride. Jennifer placed a tablet on his desk. This is trending on social media. You should see it. The video showed a young woman in her apartment, terrified, as her hacked Secure Home Systems camera followed her movements. The door locks clicked open and shut randomly. She was crying, begging for help. The caption read, "This is what happens when billionaires ignore safety for profits." Hashtag Secure Home Horror. Marcus felt physically ill. His phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. I try to warn you. I hope it wasn't too late for those people who got hurt. James Mitchell. Marcus stared at that message for a long time. Then came the knock he'd been dreading. FBI agents entered his office with warrants. Marcus Vance, we need you to come with us. We have questions about what you knew before the Secure Home launch and when you knew it. As they escorted him out of his own building, Marcus saw the protesters, saw the news cameras, saw his empire crumbling in real time. And in that moment, he realized that the janitor he'd mocked had tried to save him from this disaster. Now, as federal investigators questioned whether Marcus had knowingly endangered millions of people, he faced the very real possibility of criminal prosecution and the complete destruction of everything he'd built. The FBI interrogation room was nothing like Marcus's luxury office. Harsh fluorescent lights, metal table, recording devices. Two agents sat across from him while his lawyer, Thomas Bradford, whispered urgent advice. Mr. Vance, Agent Morrison began, sliding a document across the table. This is a testimony from David Park, your head of engineering. He states that his team raised concerns about security vulnerabilities 3 weeks before launch. Did you receive those concerns? Marcus chose his words carefully. My engineering team frequently raises concerns. That's their job. We address them systematically. That's not what I asked. Did you receive specific warnings about the authentication vulnerability that was exploited? Thomas interrupted. My client addressed all concerns through appropriate channels. Did anyone else warn you? Agent Shun, the second investigator, leaned forward. We have reports that a member of your night custodial staff attempted to alert you to the exact vulnerability that was exploited. Is that true? Marcus felt the trap closing. If he lied, they'd prove it. If he told the truth, a janitor made some comments about the system, Marcus admitted. But he had no credentials, no expertise that I was aware of. No expertise? Agent Shin pulled out another document. James Mitchell holds a master's degree in computer science from Carnegie Mellon. He worked as a senior cybersecurity analyst for Prometheus Technologies. You know Prometheus, the company that had a massive security breach last year. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Mr. Mitchell was the one who discovered that vulnerability. Agent Morrison continued. He tried to warn Prometheus's leadership. They ignored him. The company lost $2 billion. Mr. Mitchell was scapegoated and blacklisted from the industry. That's why he was working as a janitor. It was the only job he could get. The room spun. James Mitchell wasn't just knowledgeable. He was an expert who'd literally predicted this exact scenario before at another company. Did Mr. Mitchell specifically warn you about the remote access authentication? Agent Shun pressed. Marcus nodded slowly. Yes. And you dismissed his warning? I didn't know his background. He was a janitor. Agent Morrison's voice was hard. So you dismissed a warning from a qualified expert because of his job title? Thomas put a hand on Marcus's arm. Don't answer that. The interrogation lasted 4 more hours. By the end, Marcus was released but knew he was in serious legal jeopardy. The walk from the federal building to his car ran a gauntlet of news cameras and shouting reporters. Mr. Vance, did you knowingly release a defective product? Is it true you fired the man who tried to warn you? How many people have been victimized because of your negligence? Marcus pushed through to his car, but the damage was done. The footage would be on every news channel within minutes. Back at Valtech Tower, the situation had deteriorated further. Marcus walked into a war room where his executive team looked like survivors of a shipwreck. Give me the numbers, Marcus commanded. David Park stood, his voice hollow, stock down 67%. Market cap reduced by $40 billion. We've had 12 million cancellations and refund requests. 37 lawsuits filed, with more coming hourly. Class action suits forming. And we have confirmed reports of 63 burglaries directly attributed to the secure home hack. Richard added, 3 of our major investors have dumped their shares. 2 board members resigned this morning. Banks are threatening to call our loans. What about the fix? Marcus asked desperately. Can we patch the vulnerability? We're working on it, but the damage is done. Even if we fix it tomorrow, who's going to trust Secure Home again? Who's going to trust Valtech? Sharon Kim entered the room, her expression grim. Marcus, the board voted. They want your resignation. Effective immediately. What? They can't. They can, and they did. You're being removed as CEO. The company needs distance from you for any chance of survival. Marcus looked around the room at faces that wouldn't meet his eyes. These people he'd worked with for years were abandoning him. Fine, he said coldly, but I'm still the majority shareholder. They can't take that. Actually, His lawyer Thomas entered, looking grim. "We need to talk about that. If you're found criminally negligent, there are provisions that could force you to sell your shares to compensate victims." That evening, Marcus sat alone in his penthouse apartment, the same apartment where he'd celebrated the launch just days ago. His phone had 347 unread messages. His email had thousands. Most were hate mail. But one email stood out. From his mother, who he hadn't spoken to in 2 years. "I saw the news. Are you okay? Call me." Marcus almost laughed. Was he okay? His company was collapsing. His reputation was destroyed. He might face criminal charges. 50 million people had been put at risk because of his arrogance. The TV news played in the background. Sources say Marcus Vance was specifically warned about the security flaw by a former cybersecurity expert working as a janitor, whom Vance reportedly mocked and dismissed. His phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. "Sir, protesters broke through building security. We're evacuating. Please don't come to the office." Marcus walked to his window and looked down at the protesters surrounding Valtech Tower. They were chanting something. He opened the window to hear it clearly. "Vance must pay. Vance must pay." For the first time in his adult life, Marcus Vance felt true fear. Not just of losing his company or his fortune, but of something worse, the possibility that he deserved everything that was happening to him. And somewhere in the city, the man who tried to save him from this disaster was probably watching the news, knowing he'd been right all along. Marcus sat in his darkened penthouse, surrounded by legal documents and news clippings, each one a nail in his coffin. 3 days since his removal as CEO. The stock was down 78%. Criminal charges seemed inevitable. But one question haunted him more than all the others. Who was James Mitchell, really? At 2 a.m., unable to sleep, Marcus opened his laptop and began searching. What he found made his blood run cold. James Mitchell, Carnegie Mellon, class of 1998. Master's degree in computer science with a focus on cybersecurity. Top of his class. Recruited straight out of grad school by Prometheus Technologies, the same company that would later suffer the catastrophic breach Marcus had used as a cautionary tale. Marcus clicked deeper. Articles from tech journals praising James's innovative work on encryption protocols. Patents in his name. A rising star in cybersecurity. Then, 10 years ago, everything changed. Marcus found a buried article from a tech blog. Prometheus whistleblower claims company ignored critical security flaw. He read with growing horror. James had discovered a vulnerability in Prometheus's flagship product 6 months before launch. He'd written detailed reports, made presentations to leadership, warned them repeatedly that the authentication system was flawed. Prometheus's CEO had dismissed him, called him an alarmist, pushed the launch forward anyway. 3 months after launch, hackers exploited the exact vulnerability James had identified. $2 billion in losses. Thousands of customers compromised. The CEO resigned with a golden parachute worth $50 million. James Mitchell was fired and publicly blamed for not catching the flaw sooner, even though he'd been the one who discovered it. The CEO's testimony to regulators painted James as incompetent, missing the obvious. The industry blacklisted him. No tech company would hire him. His reputation was destroyed. Marcus found James's LinkedIn profile, last updated 10 years ago. The summary read, "Dedicated cybersecurity professional seeking opportunities to contribute to secure system design." There were no opportunities. The final entry was from 8 years ago, currently employed in building maintenance while looking for relevant positions. Marcus sat back, feeling sick. James had lost everything trying to prevent the same disaster that just destroyed Valtech. And when he tried to warn Marcus, tried to save him from repeating history, Marcus had mocked him, dismissed him, threatened his job. He pulled up building security records and found James's employment file. 15 years at Valtech, working night shift. Perfect attendance. 0 complaints. Multiple commendations from building management for going above and beyond. Helping employees who worked late, catching security issues, even fixing minor tech problems when people asked. One note from 5 years ago caught Marcus's eye. Mr. Mitchell helped recover critical data from a crashed server after hours, preventing major data loss for the legal department. The man was still using his expertise quietly, helping where he could, even while mopping floors. Marcus found a home address. A small apartment in a modest neighborhood, about as far from Marcus's penthouse as you could get in the same city. At 6 a.m., Marcus made a decision. He had to find James, had to talk to him. But when he arrived at the address, a neighbor informed him that James had left 3 days ago. Didn't say where he was going, just packed up and left. Marcus tried James's phone number from the employment records. Disconnected. Desperate, Marcus went to Valtech Tower, now barricaded and surrounded by protesters. He snuck in through the executive entrance and went to the night shift supervisor's office. "I need to find James Mitchell," Marcus told the supervisor, a woman named Angela who'd worked there for 20 years. Angela gave him a long, hard look. "Why? So you can mock him again? Please. I need to apologize. I need his help." "His help?" Angela laughed bitterly. "You destroyed that man's career once already. Well, not you personally, but men exactly like you. And when he tried to help you, you humiliated him. I know I was wrong. Please, if you know where he is." Angela studied him for a long moment. "James was a good man, kind, patient. When my daughter was struggling with her computer science homework, he'd help her during his breaks. Never asked for anything. Just wanted to help. Where is he? I don't know. But before he left, he told me something." Angela's voice softened. He said, "I hope Mr. Vance figures it out before more people get hurt." "I really do." Marcus felt tears sting his eyes for the first time in decades. Even after everything I said to him, he still cared about helping. That's who James is. Unlike some people, his character doesn't change based on how others treat him. Marcus left Valtech Tower with a new mission. He had to find James Mitchell. Not just to apologize, but because James was the only person who truly understood the secure home vulnerability. The only person who might be able to help fix it. But more than that, Marcus needed to look James in the eye and acknowledge a truth he'd spent his whole life denying. That a person's worth had nothing to do with their job title and everything to do with their character. And the man he dismissed as just a janitor had more integrity, expertise, and wisdom than everyone in Marcus's executive team combined. Marcus spent 2 weeks searching. He hired private investigators, contacted former Prometheus employees, searched homeless shelters and community centers. Nothing. Valtech was collapsing without him. The new interim CEO was implementing emergency measures, but the company was hemorrhaging money and talent. The FBI investigation was tightening. Criminal indictments seemed imminent. Marcus's lawyer delivered the worst news yet. If you're convicted, you're looking at 5 to 10 years in federal prison for criminal negligence and fraud. And that's if we get a favorable plea deal. That night, Marcus sat in his penthouse, which he'd soon have to sell to pay legal fees, and did something he hadn't done in 30 years. He prayed, not to God necessarily, just to the universe, to anyone listening. "Please," he whispered, "let me find him. Let me make this right." The next morning, Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Mr. Vance." A woman's voice. "My name is Diana Mitchell. I'm James's sister. I saw the news. James asked me to call you." Marcus's heart raced. "Where is he? Is he okay?" "He's here with me, in Portland. He's been helping at a community center, teaching underprivileged kids computer skills." She paused. "He doesn't want to talk to you. Please. I need to apologize. I need his help. People are still being hurt because of my mistake. I know. We've been watching the news. There was another breach yesterday. 3 more burglaries. I can fix it if he'll help me. I'll do anything. Pay him anything." "Mr. Vance," Diana interrupted gently, "James doesn't want your money. He wanted you to listen, but you wouldn't. I'll listen now. Please. Let me drive up there. Let me talk to him face to face." Silence. Then, hold on. Marcus heard muffled conversation. After an agonizing minute, a different voice came on the line. Calm. Familiar. The voice that had tried to warn him. "Mr. Vance." "James." Marcus's voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. I can hear it. I found out about Prometheus. About what happened to you. About your background. If I had known. If you had known, you might have listened," James said quietly. "But that's the problem, isn't it? You only would have respected my warning if you knew I had the right credentials, the right pedigree. Marcus closed his eyes, the truth of it cutting deep. You're right. I judged you by your job instead of listening to what you were saying. I've been watching the news, Mr. Vance. People are getting hurt. Families are being violated. And you can't fix it, can you? No. My team has tried everything. The hackers are staying ahead of every patch we implement. It's like they understand the system better than we do. That's because whoever got your schematics studied them thoroughly. They found not just the main vulnerability I warned you about, but 3 others your team didn't know existed. Can you fix it? Marcus asked desperately. I know I have no right to ask after what I did to you. 3,000 employees of Valtech are about to lose their jobs if the company fails. James interrupted. Thousands of families depend on those paychecks. That matters more than my pride or your mistakes. You'd help? After everything, I'd help the people who are suffering. But I need something from you first, Mr. Vance. Anything. Name it. I need you to understand why you were wrong. Not just about me, about everyone you've ever dismissed because they didn't fit your definition of important. Marcus drove to Portland the next day. Diana Mitchell met him at the door of a modest house in a working-class neighborhood. She was in her 50s, wearing scrubs. A nurse, Marcus realized. He's in the backyard, she said coolly. Fair warning. You hurt my brother badly 15 years ago when Prometheus destroyed his career. You hurt him again 2 weeks ago. If you're here to do anything but genuinely make amends, you can leave now. I'm here to listen, Marcus said, and to learn. James was sitting at a picnic table, working on a laptop. He looked up as Marcus approached, and for a moment, neither man spoke. James looked older than Marcus remembered, gray at the temples, lines around his eyes. But there was a peace in his expression that Marcus envied. Thank you for seeing me, Marcus began, sitting across from him without being invited. I know I don't deserve it. You don't, James agreed. But those families who are being burglarized deserve better than what's happening. So tell me, what do you really want, Mr. Vance? I want your help fixing Secure Home. I want to make things right for the people I put at risk. And I want to understand how I became the kind of person who would dismiss someone like you. James studied him for a long moment. You know what the worst part was? It wasn't that you dismissed my warning. I've had people do that before. It was the contempt in your voice. The way you mocked me for being a janitor, as if that erased everything I knew or had accomplished. Marcus felt shame burn through him. I was an arrogant fool. You were. But here's what you need to understand. I'm actually proud of my work as a janitor. I took pride in keeping that building clean and safe. There's honor in all honest work, Mr. Vance. The problem wasn't my job. It was your belief that some jobs make people less valuable than others. You're right. Your head engineer, David Park, I used to talk with him sometimes when he worked late. Good man. He knew my background. He'd ask my opinion on security issues. He listened. That's why I tried to warn you too. Marcus felt another wave of regret. I didn't listen to him either. No, you didn't. Because listening would have meant acknowledging you might be wrong. And your entire identity was built on always being the smartest person in the room. They sat in silence for a moment. Then James asked, do you know why I'm still willing to help you? No, because I saw something in your eyes that night in your office. Underneath all that arrogance, there was fear. Fear that maybe you weren't as smart as you thought. Fear that your empire was built on sand. You covered it with cruelty, but it was there. Marcus nodded slowly. I've been afraid my whole life. Afraid of being poor again. Afraid of being irrelevant. So I built walls and stepped on anyone who threatened them. And now those walls have crumbled. Yes. James closed his laptop. Here's my condition for helping you, Mr. Vance. If we fix this, and I do mean if, because it's going to be difficult, you don't just restore your company. You transform it. You create a culture where every person, from the CEO to the night janitor, is treated with dignity and respect. Where warnings are heard regardless of who speaks them. I'll do it. I swear. And you publicly acknowledge what happened. You tell the truth about how you ignore my warning and David's warnings. You take full responsibility. Marcus felt his lawyer's voice in his head, screaming in no. Such an admission could guarantee criminal conviction. Could cost him everything. But looking at James's calm, honest face, Marcus realized he didn't care anymore. "I'll do it," he said. "All of it." James extended his hand. "Then let's save your company, Mr. Vance. Not for you, but for the 3,000 families who depend on it, and for the millions of people who deserve a system that actually keeps them safe." As Marcus shook James's hand, he felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just about fixing a product or saving a company anymore. This was about fixing himself. And for the first time in his life, Marcus Vance was ready to truly listen, truly learn, and truly change. James's laptop sat between them on Marcus's kitchen table. Marcus had sold the penthouse, moving into a modest 2-bedroom apartment. The contrast wasn't lost on either man. "Walk me through the current state of the system," James said, pulling up the secure home architecture. For the next 6 hours, they worked. Marcus watched in amazement as James dissected the code, finding vulnerabilities that Valtech's 50-engineer team had missed. "Here's your primary problem," James explained, highlighting a section of code. "The hackers aren't just exploiting the authentication flaw I warned you about. They've created a backdoor using your automatic update system. Every time you push a patch, they're analyzing it and adapting. So we're actually helping them stay ahead of us?" "Exactly. You're in a race you can't win because you're using their playbook." James pulled up a whiteboard app. "We need to approach this completely differently. Ow! First, we stop trying to patch the existing system. It's compromised at the foundational level. Instead, we build a completely new authentication architecture from scratch." Marcus felt panic rising. "That would take months." "The company doesn't have months. It would take your current team months," James agreed. "But I can do it in 72 hours if you get me the right access and support. The architecture I'm thinking of, I actually designed it 10 years ago for Prometheus, but they never implemented it. Why not? Too expensive. Too time-consuming. They wanted the quick, cheap solution." James met Marcus's eyes. "Sound familiar?" Marcus nodded, chastened. "What do you need?" "Direct access to the secure home code base. A small team, 5 engineers maximum, people who can take direction without ego. And David Park. I want him as my second. David's been suspended pending investigation." "Then unsuspend him. He tried to do the right thing. Punish him for that, and you've learned nothing." Marcus made the call immediately. Within 2 hours, they had a team assembled in a conference room at Valtech Tower. The building was nearly empty now. Most employees had been laid off or quit. David Park entered, looking exhausted and wary. He stopped when he saw James. "James? James Mitchell." David's face transformed with recognition. "Oh my God, you're the security specialist I used to consult with during late nights." "I didn't know. I never connected." He turned to Marcus, anger flashing. "You dismissed a warning from James Mitchell? Do you have any idea?" "I do now," Marcus said quietly. "And I'm trying to fix it. Will you help us?" David looked between them, then nodded. "For the employees. And for the customers we put at risk." The team worked around the clock. Marcus watched James lead with a quiet authority that put his own leadership style to shame. James listened to every engineer's input, built on good ideas, gently corrected mistakes without humiliation. "Why are you so patient with them?" Marcus asked during a coffee break at 3 a.m. "Because they're trying their best," James said simply. "Treating people with contempt doesn't make them better. It makes them afraid to take risks or admit mistakes. Fear kills innovation." Marcus thought about all the employees he'd terrorized over the years. How many good ideas had died because people were too afraid to voice them? On the second day, they hit a major obstacle. The new authentication system worked perfectly, but implementing it meant all 50 million users would need to manually reinstall the Secure Home app and reconfigure their systems. "They'll never do it," Marcus said, despairing. "After what happened, they don't trust us." "Then we give them a reason to trust us," James said. "We tell them the truth." That afternoon, Marcus did something unprecedented. He called a press conference. No lawyers, no script, no spin doctors. Just him telling the truth. "My name is Marcus Vance," he began, looking directly into the cameras. "And I need to confess something. Before we launched Secure Home AI, I was specifically warned about the security vulnerability that was exploited. I was warned by my head engineer, David Park. and I was warned by James Mitchell, a cybersecurity expert working nights as a janitor in our building. The reporters erupted with questions, but Marcus continued. I dismissed both warnings. I dismissed David because I valued speed over safety. And I dismissed James because I judged him by his job title instead of his expertise. Because I was arrogant enough to believe I knew better than everyone around me. He paused, gathering courage. My arrogance put 50 million people at risk. My arrogance contributed to 63 burglaries and countless violations of privacy. People have been hurt, genuinely hurt, because I wouldn't listen. The room was silent now. I can't undo what happened, but I can tell you what I'm doing now. James Mitchell has designed a completely new security architecture for Secure Home. It's not a patch. It's a fundamental redesign that will make the system genuinely secure. But it requires every user to reinstall and reconfigure. Marcus looked at the camera again. I'm not asking you to trust me. I haven't earned that. But I'm asking you to trust James Mitchell, a man who tried to prevent this disaster, who was mocked for his efforts, and who's helping anyway because he cares about your safety more than his pride. He held up a document. I'm also announcing immediate changes to Valtech. James Mitchell is our new Chief Security Officer and will have final authority over all product launches. We're implementing an anonymous reporting system where any employee, regardless of position, can raise safety concerns without fear of retaliation. And we're establishing an external ethics board with real power to halt products they deem unsafe. After the press conference, Thomas Bradford, Marcus's lawyer, looked ready to have a heart attack. Do you have any idea what you just did? Thomas shouted. You admitted everything. You've guaranteed criminal prosecution. I know, Marcus said calmly, but it was the truth, and I'm done lying. That evening, as Marcus and James reviewed implementation plans, Marcus's phone exploded with notifications. The press conference was viral. #VanceTruth was trending. But more importantly, Secure Home users were starting to reinstall the app. Thousands at first, then tens of thousands. By midnight, over 5 million had updated to the new secure system. James smiled. People respond to honesty. Who knew? You did, Marcus said. You've known all along what I'm only learning now. On the third day, at 11 p.m., James ran the final security tests on the new system. Marcus watched nervously as lines of code scrolled across the screen. Finally, James sat back. It's done. The new system is secure. I've tested it against every known exploit, including the ones currently being used. It's solid. Marcus felt tears of relief. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. Now comes the hard part. What's harder than this? Maintaining it. Staying vigilant. Never getting so comfortable that you stop listening to warnings again. Marcus nodded, knowing James was right. They'd solve the immediate crisis, but the real test would come in the weeks and months ahead. Could Marcus truly change? Could he build a company based on respect instead of fear? As he looked at James, this man he'd once dismissed as just a janitor, Marcus realized his entire future depended on staying humble enough to keep learning from people he'd once considered beneath him. The federal courthouse stood like a monument to justice, its marble columns imposing against the gray sky. Marcus adjusted his tie. Not the $1,000 silk he used to wear, but a simple navy tie from a department store, and walked through a gauntlet of cameras and protesters. Some held signs supporting him. Vance told the truth. Others wanted blood. Lock him up. Inside, the hearing room was packed. Federal prosecutors, victims of the Secure Home breach, media, and sitting in the front row, offering silent support, was James Mitchell. The federal prosecutor, Amanda Chun, was known for her ruthlessness. She'd built her career prosecuting corporate criminals. Marcus was her biggest case yet. Mr. Vance, she began, her voice sharp as a scalpel. You've waived your Fifth Amendment rights and agreed to testify fully about the events leading to the Secure Home disaster. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. Let's start from the beginning. When did you first become aware of security concerns with the Secure Home AI system? Marcus took a breath. This was it. 3 weeks before launch. My head engineer, David Park, raised concerns about the authentication system. And how did you respond? I dismissed them. I told him we were on schedule and couldn't delay. Did you investigate his concerns? No. Why not? Because I prioritized the launch timeline over security. I was afraid of losing our market advantage to competitors. Amanda pulled out a document. 2 days before launch, you had another warning. Can you tell the court about that? Yes. James Mitchell, who worked as a night janitor at Valtech, approached me about a vulnerability he'd noticed in our technical specifications. And Mr. Mitchell's qualifications? He has a master's degree from Carnegie Mellon in computer science and is an expert in cybersecurity. But I didn't know that at the time. What did you know? Marcus felt the shame burn. I knew he was a janitor, and I dismissed his warning because of that. I mocked him. I told him to stick to mopping floors. A murmur went through the courtroom. Amanda pressed on. Did you investigate his warning? No. Did you even look at the specific vulnerability he identified? Not thoroughly. I glanced at it briefly after he left, but I convinced myself my engineering team would have caught any real problems. So you had 2 separate warnings from qualified individuals about the same security flaw, and you ignored both. Yes. Why? Marcus met her eyes. Arrogance, fear, and a fundamental disrespect for anyone I perceived as beneath me in status. I believed I was smarter than everyone around me. I was wrong. Amanda spent 3 hours dismantling Marcus's decisions. Every choice, every dismissal, every prioritization of profit over safety. Marcus answered every question honestly, even when the answers made him look worse. Finally, she asked, do you understand that 63 families were burglarized because of the vulnerability you were warned about? That 3 people were assaulted? That millions of people had their privacy violated? Yes, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. I understand, and I take full responsibility. Not my company, me. I made those decisions. No further questions. Marcus's lawyer, Thomas, stood for cross-examination, which meant trying to minimize the damage. But Marcus stopped him. Thomas, I need to say something else. Marcus, don't. Marcus turned to the judge. Your Honor, may I make a statement? Judge Rodriguez, a stern woman in her 60s, nodded. Proceed. Marcus stood. I know this hearing is about determining whether I should face criminal charges. And I want the court to know that I don't dispute anything the prosecution has presented. I did everything they said I did. I deserve whatever consequences come from that. Thomas dropped his head into his hands. But I want to talk about what I've learned, Marcus continued. For 20 years, I built a company based on fear, intimidation, and the belief that some people matter more than others. I crushed competitors. I bullied employees. I treated anyone without a fancy degree or title as irrelevant. He looked at James. Then a janitor tried to save me from my own arrogance. And I mocked him. That moment, that specific choice to dismiss James Mitchell's warning, represents everything wrong with how I've lived my life. Marcus pulled out a document. If the court will allow it, I'd like to call a witness. James Mitchell. Amanda looked surprised, but didn't object. James approached the stand, was sworn in, and sat down. Marcus's lawyer hissed. What are you doing? Something I should have done weeks ago, Marcus replied. Listening. Marcus addressed James directly. Mr. Mitchell, can you explain to the court why you warned me about the secure home vulnerability? James spoke clearly, because I'd seen it before. At Prometheus Technologies, I discovered a nearly identical flaw. I warned leadership. They ignored me. When their system was hacked, $2 billion in damages resulted, and people were hurt. I was blamed and blacklisted from the industry. And yet you try to warn me anyway, knowing I might react the same way. Yes. Why? James was quiet for a moment. Because people's safety matters more than my pride or past pain. I saw what was going to happen, and I couldn't stay silent, even if it meant being humiliated again. Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. Your Honor, this man represents everything I wasn't. He put others first. He spoke truth to power despite knowing the cost. He tried to save people from suffering. And his voice cracked, I treated him like he was worthless. The courtroom was silent. James Mitchell isn't the one who should have been questioned today. He should be commended. And I hope this court recognizes that while my actions deserve punishment, his actions deserve recognition. Marcus sat down. Amanda Chun stood slowly, clearly recalibrating her approach. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, "you worked with Mr. Vance to create the new secure system, correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "Why?" "After how he treated you." "Because 3,000 families depended on Valtech for their income. Because millions of customers needed a secure system. My feelings about Mr. Vance's past behavior mattered less than helping people." "Do you believe Mr. Vance has genuinely changed?" James looked at Marcus. "I believe he's trying to. Whether he succeeds long-term, time will tell. But the man who stood here today telling the complete truth, accepting full responsibility, that's not the same man who mocked me in his office. People can change if they choose to." The hearing concluded at 5 p.m. Judge Rodriguez would issue her decision on criminal charges within 2 weeks. Outside the courthouse, Marcus was swarmed by reporters. "Mr. Vance, are you prepared to go to prison?" "If that's the consequence of my actions, yes." "Do you regret your testimony?" "I regret my actions that made the testimony necessary. But I don't regret telling the truth." James appeared at his side, and the reporters shifted focus. "Mr. Mitchell, how do you feel about Mr. Vance's testimony?" James smiled slightly. "I think he finally learned to listen." That evening, Marcus sat in his small apartment, emotionally exhausted. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello. Mr. Vance?" A woman's voice, hesitant. "My name is Patricia Gomez. My home was burglarized because of a secure home hack." Marcus closed his eyes. "Ms. Gomez, I'm so sorry. I'm calling to say thank you." Marcus was stunned. "What?" 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in the same courthouse, waiting for Judge Rodriguez's decision. James sat behind him, along with David Park and several Valtech employees who'd voluntarily come to support them both. Judge Rodriguez entered, her expression unreadable. Everyone stood. "Mr. Vance," she began, "I've reviewed the testimony, evidence, and over 300 letters submitted to this court, both from victims and from people supporting you. This has been one of the most complex cases I've encountered." Marcus held his breath. "Your actions were negligent. You ignored multiple warnings from qualified individuals. Your arrogance and dismissive attitude directly contributed to a disaster that harmed thousands of people. Under normal circumstances, I would impose the maximum criminal penalties." Marcus nodded, accepting it. "However," the judge continued, "your complete acceptance of responsibility, your immediate actions to fix the problem, and your unprecedented honesty in testimony demonstrate genuine remorse. More importantly, your work with Mr. Mitchell has resulted in a security system that experts say is now the industry standard." She looked directly at Marcus. "I'm not going to send you to prison, Mr. Vance. But you will serve 5 years of probation, perform 1,000 hours of community service teaching business ethics, and pay a fine of $5 million to be distributed among victims of the breach." Marcus felt his knees weaken with relief. "Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me yet. There are conditions. You will remain as Valtech's CEO only if you maintain the reforms you've promised. James Mitchell will serve as Chief Ethics Officer with full authority to overrule any decision he deems unsafe or unethical, including your own. You will submit to quarterly audits of company culture and employee treatment. Any violation of these terms results in immediate criminal prosecution. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor. Completely." "Then we're adjourned." "Mr. Vance, don't make me regret this decision." Outside, media swarmed them again. Marcus gave a brief statement. "I'm grateful for the court's decision and will spend every day proving worthy of this second chance. But the real credit belongs to James Mitchell and the employees who believe in our ability to change." 3 months later, Marcus stood in the renovated Valtech Tower. The company had survived, smaller but stronger. They'd lost 40% of their market value, but customer trust was slowly rebuilding. The biggest change was visible everywhere. The executive floor was gone. Marcus now had an office the same size as everyone else's. The employee advisory board met weekly, with real power to influence policy. Starting wages had increased 30%. Profit sharing was now company policy. And every new employee, from janitor to executive, went through the same orientation that began with a video. In it, Marcus told the story of how a janitor had tried to save the company and how a CEO's arrogance had nearly destroyed it. James's office was next to Marcus's. As chief ethics officer, he had veto power over any product or decision. He'd used it twice. Both times Marcus had agreed after hearing James's reasoning. One afternoon, Marcus knocked on James's door. "Got a minute?" James looked up from reviewing a new product proposal. "Always." "What's up?" "I wanted to give you this." Marcus handed him a document. James read it, his eyes widening. "Marcus, this is a 10% equity stake in Valtech. I can't accept this. You earned it. You saved this company. More than that, you saved me." Marcus sat down. "I've been thinking about something you said during the trial, about whether I've genuinely changed. And I don't know yet," Marcus admitted. "Some days I feel like my old self creeping back, getting impatient, wanting to cut corners. But then I remember that night in my office. I remember the contempt in my voice when I dismissed you, and I never want to be that person again." James studied him. "You know what I think? Change isn't a destination. It's a daily choice. You're going to have moments of arrogance and impatience. The question is what you do when you recognize them. How did you become so wise?" James laughed. 15 years of night shifts gives you a lot of time to think. And a lot of perspective. You know what I learned pushing that cleaning cart? What? That every job teaches you something if you're humble enough to learn. Cleaning taught me patience, attention to detail, and that there's dignity in any work done well. Those lessons made me a better security expert than I was before. Marcus nodded. "I wish I'd learned that sooner." "You're learning it now. That's what matters." A knock interrupted them. Angela, the former night shift supervisor, poked her head in. "Sorry to interrupt, but the community center just called. The new computer lab is ready for the grand opening." Marcus had donated $2 million to build a technology education center in an underserved neighborhood. James was leading the curriculum development, teaching cybersecurity to kids who'd never had access to such resources. "Want to come see it?" James asked. They drove to the community center together. Inside, 30 kids aged 8 to 18 were exploring brand new computers and tablets. Their faces lit with wonder and excitement. A young girl approached James shyly. "Mr. Mitchell, are you really going to teach us how to protect computers from bad guys?" James knelt to her level. "I am. And I'm going to teach you how to build systems so secure that bad guys can't get in at all. Would you like that?" She nodded enthusiastically. "My mom says you used to be a janitor. Is that true?" "It is. And now you're a teacher and a boss at a big company?" "That's right." She smiled. "My dad is a janitor. He says people don't respect his work." James glanced at Marcus, who felt the weight of those words. Your dad's work is important and honorable, and anyone who doesn't see that is missing something important about the world. Marcus stepped forward. Your father helps keep buildings safe and clean so people can do their jobs. That's essential work. Without people like him, nothing else functions. The girl beamed and ran back to her computer. Later, as they watched the kids learn, James said quietly, "You know what the best part of this is?" "What?" 3 of these kids have parents who work at Valtech. Janitors, cafeteria staff, security guards. Their kids now have opportunities they might never have had. That's what real change looks like. Marcus felt emotions swell in his chest. "I've been thinking about my legacy. For years, I thought it would be measured in billions of dollars or market dominance. Now I realize those things are empty if they're built on treating people as disposable." "So what do you want your legacy to be?" Marcus watched a young boy figure out a coding problem, his face lighting up with accomplishment. "I want to be this. Opportunities created, people empowered. A company where everyone, from CEO to custodian, is valued and heard. That's a worthy goal. I couldn't have gotten here without you, James. You could have let me fail, let the company collapse. I would have deserved it." James shook his head. "That would have hurt thousands of innocent people. Besides, I believe people can change. Even billionaires who mock janitors." He smiled. "Especially them, actually. They have the most to learn." 6 months after the trial, Valtech released its first new product under the reform structure, a privacy-focused messaging app that had been reviewed and approved by the ethics board, tested extensively, and launched only when everyone agreed it was ready. It was a modest success, not a blockbuster. But every review praised its security and ethical design. Customer trust was growing. Marcus stood in the employee cafeteria, where he now ate lunch regularly instead of in his office, and watched the diverse staff interact. Engineers talking with janitors. Executives learning from entry-level workers. His phone buzzed. A message from his mother saw the 60 Minutes piece on Valtech's transformation. "I'm proud of you, son. Not for the success, for the humility." That evening, Marcus and James stood on the roof of Valtech Tower, looking out of the city. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked. "Helping me? You could have let me fall and started your own company." "I thought about it," James admitted. "But then I realized there are thousands of companies. What we have a chance to do here is prove that businesses can transform, that admitting mistakes and changing course is possible." "You really believe that?" "I do, and you're proving it every day." Marcus looked at the skyline, the same view he'd had from his penthouse. But everything looked different now. Not because the city had changed, but because he had. "James, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "That night, when you warned me, when I mocked you and told you to leave, what did you think?" James was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I thought, here we go again. Another Prometheus." "I was disappointed, but not surprised. Powerful people rarely listen to those they consider beneath them. And yet you still helped me later. Because I learned something from Prometheus that you hadn't learned yet. Holding on to anger and resentment only hurts yourself. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of their mistakes." Marcus felt tears in his eyes. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not, but I'm giving anyway. Not for you, for me. And for all the good we can do together." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the city. Below them, Valtech hummed with the energy of people working together, respecting each other, building something meaningful. Marcus thought about his journey, from arrogant billionaire to humbled leader. He'd lost billions in market value but gained something more valuable: wisdom, humility, and genuine relationships built on respect rather than fear. "You know what's funny?" Marcus said. "I used to measure my worth by how much money I made and how many people feared me. Now I measure it by how many people I've helped and how many mistakes I've learned from." James smiled. "That's called growth, Marcus. Hold on to it." As they headed back downstairs, Marcus paused at the door. "Thank you, James. For everything. For trying to warn me. For forgiving me. For teaching me what real leadership looks like." "You're welcome. Now let's go home. Tomorrow we have 30 kids counting on us to teach them that their worth isn't defined by their circumstances. It's defined by their character and what they choose to do with their knowledge." Marcus smiled. Tomorrow, and the day after, and all the days that followed. Each one a chance to live differently, to lead with humility, to listen to the wisdom that could come from anyone, even a janitor with a mop. That was his legacy now. Not billions in a bank account, but lives changed, opportunities created, and a company transformed from a monument to arrogance into a model of ethical business. And it all started because one man had the courage to speak truth to power, and another man finally found the humility to listen. The empire of arrogance had fallen. In its place rose something better, a foundation built on respect, dignity, and the understanding that every person, regardless of their title or position, has inherent worth and wisdom to offer. Marcus Vance was no longer the billionaire who mocked the janitor. He was the man who learned from him, and that made all the difference.